Good evening, everyone. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and I know you're seeing me at an angle right now. That is because I'm running a live stream, and I have my laptop right over here, and you're watching me on a Kodak EasyShare camera. And the reason I do this is because I don't want you to have to go through an entire live stream just to see a particular lesson, and this is a very important lesson to you. I am now going to continue my video series on the Samsung J3 Orbit smartphone by discussing the calculator that is included on your smartphone. Now, you would probably think to yourself, why would I care? It just looks like a basic calculator. Well, if you're holding your phone like this, and you don't rotate your phone, it does look like a regular calculator. Now, I know you didn't see anything on my screen right now, but you will. And that's because I'm going to post a whole bunch of illustrations on this particular video that will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? So, as I go from illustration to illustration, just listen to me very carefully. Go ahead and take a look at your phone. If you do not own a Samsung J3 Orbit and you own some other kind of phone, you can go ahead and take a look at those, and you'll see this for yourself. Okay, and you may even have more functions on your phone than even I do. And if you do, let me know. Leave it down here in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. Alright, now the first thing I'd like to tell you is how to find the calculator on your smartphone. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to swipe your phone to the left, like this. Okay, you're going to swipe your finger to the left, and then at that point, you're going to see the Tools folder. Tap the Tools folder. When you do, you will actually see that one of the things you can do is you have the calculator app. Tap the calculator app and your calculator comes up. Okay? Now at this point, if you have your phone like this, standing straight up and not tipping on its side, it looks like an ordinary calculator. It looks like a calculator you would have in your pocket. No big deal. Alright? Now, keep in mind that I'm a lot older than the rest of you guys are, so when I was a kid, regular calculators looked like that. This was the kind of stuff you would buy at a 5 and dime store. And you have like maybe 20 buttons on the whole dang thing, and that was it. So, really, this was pretty non-sophisticated for a calculator, okay? But the looks of this can be very, very deceiving, and it definitely is. If you rotate your phone, you can find how deceiving this look really is, okay? The first thing you're going to see on this calculator are the digits 0 through 9. Well, that's not exciting at all. You're also going to see the addition symbol, the subtraction symbol, the multiplication symbol, and the division symbol. None of those symbols are exciting whatsoever. Okay? And do I really need to make any commentary about the equal symbol? I think you pretty much got that figured out. If you have had any rudimentary mathematics, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you've ever dealt with decimal points at all, if you've ever had elementary arithmetic, you've had decimal points. So really, the dot you see over there, that's a decimal point. You don't really need an explanation for that either. So let's start with the discussion of buttons you may not be so familiar with. Okay? And it depends on whether you've ever owned a calculator or not. Now, I know I've owned regular calculators. I've also owned scientific calculators. This is the TI-80. You can see this thing has a lot of functions. And if I were to do a full tutorial on this, we'd be at it for hours. We won't be doing that. Okay? So, let's just go ahead with what we do have, and you'll see these illustrations on your screen. The first button is the positive and negative button. Okay, if you've ever dealt with positive and negative numbers, this is what you would actually press to turn a number from positive to negative, or turn a negative number into a positive. Now, what about the percent button? Well, what you would do in that particular case is say, let's say you want to type in $50. Okay, you type that into your calculator, and then you type in 25 and press the percent key. It's going to give you 25%. You can actually multiply. You can say $50 times 25%, and it'll give you the 25% of that. Or you could subtract 25%. You could say $50 minus 25 and hit the percent key, and bam, that's what you'll get, is what's left. You'll say, okay, that's 75% of the price. Now, I'm sure you've also seen the percent key, not the percent, the parentheses key, okay? Well, if you've done any rudimentary mathematics, you already know that everything that's contained inside of parentheses is solved first, and then you solve for the outside. Everything inside the parentheses is solved first, then it's solved on the outside. And that's what you'd use that parentheses key for. Now, the next thing you'll see is the large letter C. Okay? Well, that large letter C is basically your cleared. Whatever you have displayed on your screen will automatically be cleared. All you have to do is tap that C and it goes away. Now, at this very moment, your calculator appears to be a very simple calculator. If this was true, I'd end this video right now. But I think you've already figured out by now this is not as simple of a calculator as you thought it was. Let me tell you what else this calculator can do. Let's start with the clock icon. You see, wait a minute, there's an icon with a clock? Yep. If you tap that, you will see every equation that you have performed as you have worked with this calculator so far. Now, what about the ruler icon? Well, this has to do with measurements, and you can actually convert measurements from one unit to another. Okay? And now let's go over what you can convert. You can convert acres, square centimeters, square feet, square inches, and square meters. Okay? Now, you say, wait a minute, how do I do that? Well, let me show you. So, what's going on here is that the first units that you can convert are areas. Okay? And these areas are acres, square centimeters, square feet, square inches, square meters. But there's also one that you may not have heard of before. And if you live in the United States, there's probably a good reason why, because this actually is a European measurement. The unit of measure that I'm referring to is the ARE. Okay? This particular measurement was created when the metric system was created, but the metric system is usually used in European countries and not usually used here. Okay? We here in the United States, we don't really use the metric system unless we're in the scientific field. Over there in Europe, that's exactly what they use. An ARE, okay, is equal to 100 square meters. And a hectare is equal to 100 ares. So if you're not measuring large tracts of land, you'll probably have no particular use for this measurement. So what other measurements can you convert? You can convert lengths of lines or distances. You can convert centimeters, meters, kilometers, inches, feet, yards, miles, and even nautical miles. But is that all you can convert? Oh no. And once again, you have to go back to Europe in order to understand why you do not find this here. It is called a mill. You can actually convert something into a mill. What is a mill? Is it a windmill? I hope you don't think that, because it's not. The word mill is an abbreviation from the Latin word mille, which means 1,000. This measurement is very, very tiny. It's much shorter than an inch, and as a matter of fact, it is 1/1000th of an inch. That's a pretty small measurement. What else can you measure with this thing? You can convert temperature measurements such as Celsius and Fahrenheit. Well, that comes in real handy when you're dealing with the weather. Now, in the United States we usually use Fahrenheit, but if you were to go to Europe, you would use Celsius. You'll find that out real quick. But you can also convert kelvins. What's a kelvin? Well, to answer that question, you have to look up a man by the name of Sir William Thomson. He was knighted by Queen Victoria and was granted the title of Baron Kelvin of Alarms. And if you want to do research on that, please go ahead and do so. Okay? It's really fascinating research. So what does this one measure? If you want to understand this measurement, consult thermodynamics. Look up the topic of thermodynamics and you'll understand what a Kelvin is. If I were to explain all that in this video would be 40, 50, 60 minutes long. And I don't think you want the video to be that long. What other measurements can you convert with this thing? You can convert gallons. And I have to say that there actually is a tiny difference between a United States gallon and a European gallon. Now the thing is, even though that difference is small, you start getting lots and lots of United States gallons and lots of European gallons, you'll find that the difference between the two grows exponentially. Okay? You can also convert liters, milliliters, cubic centimeters, cubic meters, cubic inches, and cubic feet. That's not all you can do. You can also convert mass measurements. Now this is not to be mistaken as weight, okay? Weight is caused by gravity on the earth. But even though your weight can change, your mass cannot. Okay, you have the same mass whether you're here on the earth or on the moon or in deep space. You can go research that for yourself. Okay? You can convert tons. And yes, I have to say right now that there is a difference between the European ton and the United States ton. You can look this up all by yourself. You can also convert pounds, ounces, kilograms, and grams. Now there's also computer information you can convert, and these are computer measurements. Okay, this involves bits, bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and terabytes. You can also convert speed. You can convert meters, kilometers, inches, feet, and miles in either seconds or hours. Finally, you can also convert time measurements. You can convert things from milliseconds to seconds to minutes to hours to days and even weeks. If this was a basic calculator, right now you'd be jumping for joy. But this calculator has a surprise. But before I reveal the surprise, I will discuss one more icon. The icon I'm referring to looks like a green arrow. Inside the arrow is a letter X. Let's suppose you tap the wrong digit on your calculator. Do you want to erase everything and start all over again, especially if you're typing a very long number? Of course not. You can tap this icon to delete the incorrect digit. That's what that's for. Now what about the other icon? There's one more. It's a square. Inside the square is a square root symbol, a pi symbol, a lowercase letter e, and an equal sign. What happens if you tap that one? As soon as you tap it and you rotate your phone like this, you quickly realize you've got yourself a scientific calculator. So what can this scientific calculator do? Well, let's take a moment and review all the buttons that you now see on your calculator. Now, if you have taken a trigonometry course, you will immediately recognize the sine, the cosine, and the tangent buttons. And if you have ever been taught in algebra about the mathematical symbol pi, you will automatically recognize the radian key and the pi symbol right off the bat. Also, if you have ever enrolled in an algebra class, you will recognize a few more symbols. You will recognize the x squared key, the absolute value key, and the square root symbol. All of those are part of algebra. But what if you wanted to raise a number to an exponent greater than 2? In other words, you wanted to cube a number or raise it to another exponent. This is when you would tap the XY key. That's what that thing's there for. Alright, The next key I will discuss is the logarithm key. In a way, it's the reverse of raising a number to a particular exponential power. So if you want to know what exponent would be required to raise a number called a base, like 10, you want to know how many times you have to multiply 10 to itself. Say you want to multiply 10 times 10 times 10. Well, you want to know how many times you have to multiply 10 times itself to get to the number 1000. You would use the logarithm key. When you're using this particular key, you have to presume that your base is always 10. This can cause problems. Now, the next key I'm going to be referring to you will also be making a reference to a guy named Euler. Now, I know his name is spelled E-U-L-E-R, but his name is pronounced Euler. Okay? And this key I'm referring to is called the natural logarithm. Now, I'm not going to take the time in this particular video to discuss natural logarithms because it would take far too long. But in a future video, I will teach you how they work. I don't think very many people who own smartphones will ever use this key, but I will tell you that if you want to know more about it, look up Leonhard Euler. There are a couple of other keys associated with Leonhard Euler. The first key has a lowercase e imprinted on it. This refers to Euler's number. The second key has a lowercase e with an alphabetical exponent. The letter E on this key represents the base of a natural logarithm. The exponent itself, well, the exponent itself is self-explanatory. Okay? So, if you use that particular key, you're going to have Euler's number as your base, and then you'd raise it to whatever exponent you wanted to raise it to. The next key I will discuss is basically a fraction. The numerator of this fraction will always be 1. You can choose any number for the denominator of this fraction. What about the key that has the double arrows? Well, go ahead and tap it and see what happens. Do you see all the new keys? Well, let me tell you about how those keys work. Now, the first thing you should notice is the sine, the cosine, and the tangent keys. Now they have a -1 exponent. Why is that? Because they are inverse trigonometry functions. Okay? You have your inverse sine, you have your inverse cosine, and you have your inverse tangent. If you've taken any trigonometry classes, you know what that is all about. And one of these days I'll explain that in a future video. Now we need to discuss the hyperbolic keys. Now this has to do with a hyperbola. Okay, if you remember Papa's Book 7, Proposition 238, you know that that proof included a description of the hyperbola. Okay, so these hyperbolic keys refer to that. Okay, and these keys are marked as sine h, cosine h, and tangent h. You are welcome to do research on all these keys. By the way, there are other keys that represent inverse hyperbolic functions. They are marked as sine h -1, cosine h -1, and tangent h -1. You can also calculate the cube of any number or the cube root of any number. And there is a key on your calculator that will allow you to raise the number 2 to any exponent you wish to raise it to. Now the final key I will mention in this particular video is the factorial key. It is the key which has an exclamation point next to the letter X. Due to the fact that I don't want to overextend this video, I will allow you to research factorials for yourself. But one of these days I will actually do a video and will explain factorials in detail. At this point, you now know how to use all the scientific keys on your scientific calculator. In my next video, I'm going to teach you about the clock function on your smartphone. Yep, you actually have a timer, which would be your alarm. You can also have a stopwatch. This thing can be your stopwatch, believe it or not. And I'll tell you how to do all of that in my next video. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much for watching this particular presentation. I hope you learned a lot. Let me know what you thought about my presentation in the comments down below. In the meantime, I will tell you more in a future video, so I'd like for you to stay tuned.